So they're like mixing and matching. What's the utility of this?
Are you ready for the robot?
Oh, absolutely.
Come at ya.
Yeah. You know, sometimes, you know, developing my blog post is not the way to go. You know, like, oh man, I read this blog post and explained all about this media. And like, that sounds like the future. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, would require that because that sounds interesting. And they're like, we're gonna block 3/4. What? Yeah, we're gonna get rid of all this IP table stuff because IP table is not efficient to block 3/4. No, IP table is the way to go if you're blocking 3/4. It's literally fast, but that's also weird. Yeah.
I've got what I want to do. So I don't.
Yes. Oh, dear God, yes. I'm not touched. No, I mean, I got the last job, went back to Mom got a job with friends. Just doing code base. The next JS type JavaScript. I'm not going to try to drag the collection of things. I'm not going to try to build a mapping code. Next.js magically does one shit for you. So you write over the React, TSX, JSX, .html in your files, and you can have server pages. You can have pages and components that are rendered server side. Period. You can have components that render client side. When Next.js is compiling your application, will attempt and also with additional requests, will attempt the server side render the client side components. Unconditionally, unless you use the shenanigans to tell it to shut the fuck up. Which means if the reference window outside of the fact is just breaks. Yeah, it is unnetworked. You just don't do that. That's just not a thing you can do. I mean, you can use whatever React, for your client side, you can use whatever React libraries you use. Server side, client side, no. It's kind of a mess. I'm also not a super huge fan of it. I'm also not a fan of React. So I'm coming to this from a primarily back-end perspective. So I have not found a front-end framework that I'm also not a front-end person. you ask them to design something, it's gonna look like, oh yeah, a programmer wrote that, a developer wrote that. I've gotten less terrible, but I'd say I'm no longer terrible at if you're not, because basically just web project, you just have a custom
Yeah,
element.
Amazon,
Or I mean, like, I know it's not like all the same for sure.
Web components is a philosophy. Specifically, I'm talking about custom elements of shadow. So the specific web APIs are when if you have a class and you call a registration method in the browser API, then if you have custom dash element here in the tab, then it will instantiate your class. So that's a custom element, that's just a browser API. And then you can have Shadow DOM, which does some shenanigans, but most importantly, it creates a level of isolation. So if you have styling inside of a Shadow DOM, that styling it creates a boundary where CSS rules inside and outside are in separate buckets or whatever. If I have a custom, if I ignoring the custom elements, if I do a thing and say one shadow root, that shadow root is itself a document fragment. It is kind of like an iPhone. So I'm creating a construct. That construct is a little bit like an iPhone, and I'm telling the browser, I'm telling the DOM, embed this fragment into the page. And then there's some other shenanigans where you kind of, if the custom element has content inside of it, you can do a thing that translocates that so that content is rendered inside of some place in your Shadow DOM, though it's still in a separate tree. That's the rendering is just a rendering. But effectively it's an isolated document context.
Did you have to run?
So scripts and styles and that kind of stuff, they have local isolations. You can have styling. You don't have fun situations where you make some CSS rule and that bleeds across everything and makes all kinds of unintended changes, screwing up your formatting because you made a rule that was going to So that I think it might be less painful than React. The whole render content we're looking at work here.
Like they use fabric.
Fundamental
It's very different.
So many bugs.
But never mind, that's good.
We'll see if that works. We'll see if that works.
I think front end is forever. Front end is going to forever stay with that.
Yeah, it's messy.
I like the one.
If you put it too long, the whole framework comes back.
Yep.
I did a lot of browsers coalescing downstairs. I said browsers coalescing.
Here it's basically gone now.
Yeah, they're registered. And I think it's better now because it has. Oh, Internet Explorer really mess up.
What, like 20 years ago with the
Not
big
nominated
thing?
a little coin, I don't take it.
jQuery would still hide basically.
Roll coins on me.
Yeah, jQuery is abstracted.
I mean, I have zero going to
I didn't have that.
Which is why loading it.
In my brain.
That explains why there is so much like loading. Because you know that search probably is
Yeah, I was relatively big though when it was called. Instead of it, you had these kind of like. And then to the era where there was a new framework every month.
We're still there. Nice t-shirt, by the way.
All right. So thanks everybody for coming out. We have got a couple speakers tonight, looking forward to it. But before we get started, we want to say thanks to Antone for providing the pizza and drinks tonight, so thank you. Is there have something to say?
Yeah, for sure. So, how's it going, everybody? My name's Ahmed. I'm part of a startup in Austin called Antone. We do software for collection agencies, so they'll give us their debt and we'll service it for them. We're growing the team. We're going to probably double by the end of the year. So if anyone's interested in looking for new opportunities, come have a chat with me. Nathan's also part of the company to speak with either of us. Yeah, glad to be here.
What levels of positions are you guys looking for?
Mid-level and senior level.
Mid-level?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
You mean gold debt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Senior debt.
Yeah. Mid-level and senior level debt.
Oh,
yeah. No, that's awesome. Thank you for sponsoring, and it's always great to hear. We've got more good opportunities for folks. We've got some of the best Go developers here in Austin here, and so we gotta get people in contact. So awesome. Thank you for coming out. Just as a reminder, we will not be here in March, because if you're not familiar, Austin downtown in March is kind of its own crazy thing. So if you want to come here for that, you can do that, but we're not going to be here for the Go group. And as a reminder, before we forget, if anybody parked here, I strongly recommend you come get one of these before the night is out, because this is gives you a discount, doesn't make the parking free, it makes it a lot cheaper, and I would strongly recommend it, because once I did not do that, and that was no fun. Is there anything else, any other announcements or anything before we get started? Awesome. Well, you want to go ahead and get started?
Woo!
Awesome.
Alright, so I'm not sure, the only notice I gave that I was going to give this talk was in the Go for Slack, relatively recently, but as I told HD earlier, this is about 10 years in the making. So, and I don't know if anybody's had to deal with hunting spam networks or keeping network reputations clean, or dealing with the support ramifications of having one person screw up the reputation for an entire ASN or a block. There's just a lot of late night pain that came to me wanting to even talk about this in the first place. And just to be short, Golang made a lot of other time waiting go away in discovery and looking for bad guys on the network. So I'll say also up front, I'm going to do some live command and control domains, but I'm not going to say them out loud, and I'd ask that everybody, if you see them, just don't speak them audibly for the recording's sake. I need to get this talk to some other folks before it's indexed. So that's it. I'll also admit that Nana Banana did all the damn images. I'm not an artistic guy, and a lot of these I just said, with the rest of the text on the screen, create an image. So if some shit doesn't make sense, I mean, it is what it is. Why the fucking lasers are coming out of his back and going to some place where like a little rubber ducky would be hanging out the back on a Hack 5 side, I don't know, but it's been fun playing with that as a way of hopefully spicing this up. So, but real quick, how many people here have actually done any kind of reconnaissance looking for spam operators on a bigger scale? A few? And how many people just have to be behind a support desk in any capacity? Maybe? Okay, yeah. Well, I'll elaborate a little bit more. If there's anything that doesn't stick for folks who haven't had to deal with this, let me know. I'm happy to go into details. But quick agenda, the gratitudes, what we're thankful for, why. Here, who am I? Snow what is this really we're talking about? And then the inspiration and intent. That's the non-technical part, that's the story. The first hunts, the original shell scripts that took forever, the faster hunts with Go, and then a live, hopefully, demo with the resolvers here and networks willing. We'll go through some active campaigns, and then what's next. So, to the gratitudes, I was thinking about this mostly, and I was like, where's this pizza and drink come from? And thank you guys for making it happen. And thank you tonight for an official sponsor. A lot easier when official sponsors carry the weight for the community when we get to endorse that back. So I'll say that up front. And then, of course, for the place, Station Austin, I haven't even got used to saying it myself. I co-work here and I'm not used to saying it yet. In terms of the, I don't know, center of gravity for the entrepreneurs here, there's a lot happening, co-working, the VC side. Any members here by chance? Just one? Okay. Well, that's good. It's bringing a lot of folks in on the evenings who don't sit here all day, but I'm blessed to sit here through most of the day and then come participate in these events afterwards. And there's a lot happening. And I mean, EFF, the Prosper Exo people for the artist recognition, there's just so much, board games, you name it now. So a lot happening here and it's appreciated. And then to the people, I mean, I've learned more from the people in this room than I would ever be able to learn watching a curated video on YouTube or sitting in an academic environment where they're not even talking about this shit yet. I mean, that's just the short version. So thank you for all being here. Who am I? I mean, this is kind of a loaded ass slide and they tried to summarize it with the banana output, but I do a lot of things with co-op, ACBA, on the board, automated chicken coops. I think one of the reasons I was most intrigued with this was HD showing some fucking sense, like, what do you call it, the little hardware open source, Seed Studio things, put a lot of Seed Studio devices in chicken coops. And then on a get out and get some vitamin D topic, the Festival Beach Food Forest, computer people need vitamin D too, so go out, you can play on the park, plant some shit, it's a great place. And you learn a lot too, you learn more Latin there about plants. Just, wow, okay, and I might be able to grow that at home. So, beside Crusades at Art Tech, and then Web Hosting Co-op. So, I worked for HostGator when it sold to Endurance. That was a NTS. It was like, how do we prevent that from happening again? Started Co-op, long story short. So, prior service, crew chief, worked at Micron, Codero doing MSP. The MSP side is what really this is coming from. 10 years of babysitting AS7s. So, Snow what? This is a really generic ass slide, but what it really boils down to, you have a lot of folks spreading their activity out to avoid detection. And spam, it's such a nuisance thing, but there's a lot of real world business implications for non-deliverable, specifically for small businesses. So that's where a lot of this pain point comes from. Excuse me. So the network reputation, I came at this from an infrastructure provider. 32,000 IPs, check, 10 get misused, now 254 blocked. Exponentially grows as a pain point with just a few bad actors. So I will say, I need to refine this and give the talk for the Secure Hosting Alliance, but as listed here, there's the I2 Coalition and HostingSecurity.net. They're in the heart of this. And I would encourage you, if you have a hosting provider, see if that provider is participating, because it's open to everybody. We need more people at the table. So, any questions so far? Snowshoe spamming, annoyance, lots of IPs, lots of domains.
How is that during the botnet?
The botnets are typically taking advantage of resources that were exploited, maliciously deployed, a router that's compromised, fucking light bulb, you know, but.
So Snowshoe, they're buying hosting somewhere, a bunch of hosts.
Deliberate infrastructure, and I'll get into that in a couple of perspectives here, but it's intended to be long-term infrastructure. That's I'd say the differentiator. So, what inspired this talk? The Chromium discussions in January. You know, the delayed aha. You work on something and like 2 years later, you hear something like, aha, that would solve my problem. That was a big kicker for this, but also VetSec. I say it jokingly here, but support group for veterans, taking people that basically were combat, getting them into cybersecurity because they already got the OPSEC mindset. So that's a big esoteric private group where we talk about a lot of stuff like this, and it's been motivating to get that support and also share with those guys. So teaching a lot of Marines how to look at headers, so if you want to look at it that way. But and then ultimately, and this is the heart of it, a 2016 support call. It's like, man, I'm working at a support desk, get a call, take a call, this is John, how may I help you? And start getting my ass reamed. I'm like, oh man, what's going on? And the kicker is, when I said I was in the Air Force, I'm used to getting yelled at for shit I had no control over. But it's always with the mindset that you make sure that you don't have to deal with this again. Well, sir, can I get the client ID? What's going on? Just getting cussed at. Who are you guys? What the fuck is a Codero? You know, just getting reamed. And It turned out he wasn't a client, but he had received a very vulgar email, the first email his daughter received on a Hotmail account that he created for her when she turned 13. So 13-year-old girl, first email, vulgar ass, oh, come and get this, and just vulgar, extreme. And he's yelling at me and reading it out on the phone, and I'm trying to teach him how to get the headers to me. I'm like, oh, why need you get this to our abuse desk? 20 minutes later, get a ticket in the abuse desk, has the headers. It's like, well, shit, it did come from our network. All right, we have something to do. So I'll summarize a lot, just because I have to redact a lot of the client details through this. But that kicked off an investigation that really went to thousands and thousands of dedicated boxes with a large number of providers. So the support call with those headers, like I said, it was our box. Like, shit, we actually have something to do. Like I yelled after something that may be legit. The billing accounts, stateside addresses, which, okay, maybe it's legit, maybe it's .com. No abuse history prior. Shit, they've had the server for 6 months. This is a vulgar email that came through it, first time we've seen one. Reiterates, maybe it's legit. Custom PTR records, so it's deliberate. They were gonna send mail. They had to go to a portal and set them, and then forward and reverse matching. So the subdomain A record resolved with IP, the reverse DNS record matched. That's the majority of what email validity checks score the spam with. So that was all in place, but the kicker was the name on the account was on spam calls as ROC, so Register of Known Spam Operations list with all the same billing details we had. Like, well, shit, we can term them. Our terms of service says if you're on ROC, so you're not allowed on our network. So we didn't term them right away though, because like I said, this was one server on an account with 5 other boxes, no abuse history, everything looks legit. So just start looking for other matches with that. Where I would say the abuse review came in. Good.
I was curious, do you actually check to make sure that like that connection that they claim took place, it actually took place from your network to the other one?
Well, we didn't have like full net flows in capping all the shit to look back and play it back, but you can look at the headers and be like, reliably, this came from that IP, the PTRs in the headers, the transaction time. You can see that Banner is still listening with that same, but they didn't make up headers. I mean, now you say ChatGPT made me some bullshit headers to send an abuse report, get somebody in trouble, and they'll do it. But that wasn't a thing back then. This was a very vulgar email sent through that campaign box, and we had everything to say it was definitely on the thing. So we didn't have root administrative access to the box, so like just jump on, start looking around. But eventually we did have to get on the box, single user mode, and really dig that out, just to see what else is there anything legit here? That's what the discovery becomes. So. But in the abuse review, the profiles, we'd say, all servers IPv4 and PTR. That was the baseline. They were always using Sonoma, mostly with power MTA, just simple little MTAs. And the SSH ports, they would always close them off except to their command and control traffic, which we could see that from the net flow, but we couldn't see what was in it. So the thing I'll point out too, every box had extensive local host files. Why? Skipping passive DNS monitoring. So we would use our resolvers by default, but we'd never see lookups. So well shit, how do we span if we're not using, we're seeing even initial lookups for like an update or an app update or a YUM update for these boxes. So in short, local DNS avoided most of the passive monitoring tools that we would put on the network. So and then they had A records, MX records for the main providers, Gmail, Yahoo, everything on their zone, so it never had to look them up. So things like Farsight, all the other tools, never see it. It just wasn't in the box. So that was the profile that we were looking at. The suspensions, and this is kind of a heavy slide, but what it really boiled down to, we were seeing Illinois driver's license. Max Mine said it was risky, and he said a fucking driver's license would be for Illinois, and then the first IP would actually be Moroccan. So it was like, oh, okay, here's our first little trend. And then we were also seeing intermittent DC signups. It was like they knew that, oh, you shouldn't sign up from Colo Crossing because that's flagged with certain providers as an origin that's risky. So we were seeing things like the UPS stores. The addresses were always complete bullshit. That's what it boiled down to. And then we were seeing on our edges only traffic to their infrastructure, except for SMTP volume after the fact. So it's like, okay, we put blacklists on the edges, but then the boxes that we're monitoring, they were able to see that trace routes. So ultimately it just ended up targeting, making it really hard for them to even figure out what they were looking at, because their packets weren't coming back. So going through some of these quickly, and this is all how they were responding to us. The short version is, if we send an abuse notification, just turn the box, they would always come back and say, well, we fixed it. Well, how did you fix it? We turned it off before we notified you. So there's like that kind of mentality at play. But the support interactions, they would never have signatures on their engagements. They would just never like, oh, thank you, John. They would never have that for their namesake, because they couldn't remember who they were pretending to be. And then the burn accounts, when they would tell us they were actually going to cancel a server, if it was the last one in the box, we would just see the traffic hit a gig, 25 outbound nonstop. They'd go, oh, this one's gone, that account's burned. So, but it would be interesting too, because some of the templates that we would see when they were trying to get new boxes under new client IDs, they would forget to take the text out saying, do not send this to Liquid Web or Colo Crossing. Like from, so basically they're copied out forms or different posts in that scenarios. So the one thing that I'll say, once they realized that we were on the Illinois, they pivoted to Ukraine. All the signups were coming out of like little providers out of Ukraine, little VPS providers with our desktop. So that's where the trend pivoted to. But I point that out. The takeaway for that one incident led to where I naively thought we were talking about 100 boxes and a little spam net. And a short version ended up being about 6,800. And these are all dedicated servers that are at least $40 a month at each provider. So it's like, man, there's at least a little bit of cash flow behind this to operate at this scale. But we also realized that what we were looking at was just a single campaign with a single domain. And they did the thing that made it beautiful for us. They enumerated every box they added incrementally with the campaign and the domain name, so you can just run through them all. So, short version, Spamhaus, when they took down Roxo, it really kinked my ability in a support capacity to go to the CEO and say, yeah, we just fired them. We didn't want their revenue. Because if they're on Roxo, it was in our cost, like that's why we fired them. But I had to be the person now proving, ahead of them sending very vulgar spam messages that were gonna get our reputation screwed up, that they were doing something bad. So what it really boiled down to, looking for ways to prove the ring association without headers or an upstream list like Roxo. So that's it, the first hunts. This is actually in some repos on GitHub, but it's just slow. We were doing typical digs, pings, looping it, splitting it out, running single threads, parallelizing it, but with every little ICMP check, every single TCP connection, there's another timeout and we're waiting. So it just, I mean, everybody here knows the reason you use Go for concurrency. That was the problem. We couldn't hit concurrency with just little shell scripts and having to be quick.
Could you explain that a little more detail, what you just said there?
So in short, we knew that we were going to take, in this campaign, so we had a KSS campaign. That was the prefix for the subdomains that this set of servers were going to use. They're incrementing them, so like if they added another spam box and they were on spam box 100, the next one would be KSS 101.
Okay.
So the scripts that we were running would just simply take variables like the prefix, the start integer, the stop integer, and the like a suffix of the full domain, and iterate through them, dig -x to see the PTR, I mean, pinging it just to see if you get ICMP reply. So, yes, sir.
Was it just profanity in the emails? Like, what were their motives? Like, why would they send?
Well, this is what we didn't appreciate at the time. It was volumetric spam to predetermined campaigns with suppression IDs that if you report abuse, you don't get another spam message from any of the 6,800 boxes. Shit like that. I mean, these guys, they go to an office, like just as many people as this, and they all work on these projects daily, and we were able to even.
But what's their end goal, like, other than the profanity?
Well, it's almost to the point with the money behind it. It goes to the profanity was just what brought it to my attention. When a guy who gave his 13-year-old daughter an email account got a vulgar message, that's just what brought it to my radar. That wasn't the extent of the network. It was being used for anything. So, and I can't say that I've seen a single valid email go through the boxes, and we, like I said, rebooted them, single user mode, kept them offline, imaged them, did all kinds of shit, just like heuristically, what are these things doing? And there was never legitimate use, ever. And the economies of scale don't make sense to me personally. It's like, I know they were paying us over $2,000 a month for a set of client IDs, and when we fired them all, it was $20,000 of revenue on monthly. I had to stand in front of, well, Emil Saeed, the guy who's running Cohere at the time, and say, Emil, this is why I just fired these people. And fortunately, my support boss said, he's doing the Lord's work, and they didn't talk with me about it. And it was just, from that point, Microsoft, gosh, we wouldn't even have to submit delistings to Microsoft anymore. You know what that's like? Like logging an old bullshit portal and not have to use that? I mean, it was great. So the kicker is, we took the support burden off up front just by eradicating a bunch of boxes that were high churn, causing network reputation issues, but we couldn't use the abuse pipeline as the trigger. It was ineffective. Most people, like that guy, 20 minutes getting yelled at trying to teach him how to get headers, it's like, oh, he's not a technical guy. He's just pissed off his daughter got that email.
Which, how did he know that, like, it came from your network, if, like, they were...
I don't know how he knew it was a Codero IP originally. Hopefully he had somebody help him, but getting the headers, I think he was well prepared to do it again, but to what I just said earlier, the moment we forwarded that abuse back to the client, they took the suppression ID and made it to where that address was never getting a spam message across any of their campaigns. And they're all algorithmically generated, and I think there's a couple of things to make where you can't reverse engineer, but suppression IDs, every email address has one. Abuse at FBI.gov has a fucking suppression ID. So put it in there, it's not getting spam.
What is the suppression ID again?
It was the tooling in their databases with little power MTA hooks that would ensure if somebody had an abuse. Basically, it was a way to take people who knew how to report abuse out of the mail distribution without having the email addresses just in a database, plain text. So, yeah, they're just hashed email addresses. So if you look at, if you see your email address somewhere in a transaction, it stands out, but just a hash, like what's that? Doesn't make any sense. But in the databases, they would actually have suppression ID equals and when it was created and a bunch of little metrics like that. But for the takeaway on this side of just bash scripting, all we were trying to do was confirm the PTR records, find where they were publicly resolving, and see if SMTP was open, capture the banner. But even like in-map scripting to capture the banner, it's a lot less effective than just having it get it with a Go routine. So, but I'd say these processes about 5 minutes to do several thousand hosts, and which I'll show here in a minute. We got, just using the little Go scripts, 10,000 in about 4 seconds. Well, might be slower on this network, but we'll see. But the takeaway goes to, with the bash scripting, we were able to say, okay, it's running, here's our bad guys. It just, we go get coffee and come back and look, that kind of thing. So, I'd say the faster hunts, so going to the Go tooling, I'll show some of the code afterwards, but I'd say just, and to be fair, I think the first time I imported FMT was a few months ago. So I am not the Go guy, but for what we were solving, using Olama with various models, to kick out a lot of this, and I read it all just to try to understand it, but the takeaway is, yeah, it worked. It just saved me a bunch of time. So the first iterations, going through and looking at all those host names, one of the first dilemmas was, shit, they're using wildcard domains. So if a host was pulled out, no longer an active spam box, the IP that resolves is the default box for one of their command and control nodes. So it's like, oh, well, we don't want to try to look at that over and over and over when we know they're not active. So just having it ignore certain IPs that we were able to determine we didn't want in the results from wildcards, that was my personal attempt at cleaning it up. So a few iterations forward, I mean, I'm just naming these incrementally as I'm playing, really, but got it to where we're showing the host name, the IP that's resolving, SMTP state, and then the PTR records. The big thing with this is prior Bashland, we're talking with ICP, is like, well, why? It's like, I don't know, need root, need to do other things, just skip straight to the banner, and if 25 got a banner, it's live. So, good.
Banner?
SMTP banner,
Okay.
like so the moment you connect. Typically, if it adds the host name in the initial response from the SMTP service, or the MTA through SMTP, it's gonna add validity to spam scoring, just to see the host name in it. So, but it's all plain text in general. If you just tell them that into when you can see the banners on 425. So, but if it's got a banner, it was alive. So that saved a little bit of the time. And then moving forward a little bit, I mean, showing both the IP and the PTR IPs in the output, and of course, getting this into CSVs as well to parse it further. A lot of this was just for the quick visual of, okay, are these actual matches? Is this the deliberate spam box? That's what it boils down to. If it's a bullshit domain, like a squatting domain, and the initial IP and PTR match, it was a deliberate setup. So, yeah, deliberate action in both zones. So somebody would have to log into AWS or whatever, set a PTR record there, and then set it on their zone where the records are set for the domain.
What's the PTR?
Basically, it's a mechanism that allows a reverse DNS lookup, which is what is the host name of this IP to take place. PTR and reverse DNS commonly referenced interchangeably, but it's the other way of mapping a network or an IP to a name.
And the inverse of an A record.
Yes, sir.
Is port 25 still used in practice in plain text for SMTP?
Yes.
Like,
All over, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
there is no SSL, no TLS? No?
Well, you can do TLS, but it's dependent on the MTA and the provider.
So today, like email transits in plain text through port 25.
I think it was the FBI not one of the folks that had for the longest time no encryption? Yeah, I mean, it's a big problem still.
So there's a thing called Start TLS, and Start TLS it runs on port 25 after the plain text. So you first do the plain text, and then you do Start TLS if it's offered in the FLOW thing, and then you establish the secure connection over port 25.
That's the same thing as Start TLS on 21 instead of using 22 for SSH.
But because of this plain text, the attacker just says, no, I don't support Start TLS.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, degraded.
It's opportunistic, which means if someone's in line with you, they can always force it down in plain text.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. That answered all the questions, I think.
What does MTA stand for?
Mail transfer agent. So the SMTP specs, it was the MTP mail transfer protocol, and then I think it was Paul Mockapetris or somebody's like, that shit's crazy, let's make it SMTP. There's the SMTP, your MTAs and MTDs, the agents, and then basically your MTDs are what you're checking your mail with. So, but from a provider perspective, if you got a send off 7 box, it's only got like Power MTA installed and nothing else, then if it's got spammy reverse DNS records that are basically cyber squatting, then it's pretty evident there's not something legitimate. But I mean, I'll just go through these quickly. Hunt 6 showing some SMTP banners, so that is actually capturing the banner itself into part of the output. I mean, it could be anything. There's not a rigid spec to it, but like I said, if the host name is in the banner, it'll get past Spam Assassin and other tools more effectively. So I'm gonna try to think. Yeah, I'll just skip forward quite a few more. Console CSV output, playing around with more variations on it. And really what I was trying to do is just, how can I have it go to results file, a CSV file, to have something else pick it up? Like, I'm not far enough along where I'm gonna have Chrome little snapshots going with this, but I mean, maybe another iteration, but having it just create a CSV and then creating a second process to pick it up and run and create screenshots and do other, basically artifact gathering, that was the approach I took for it. The screenshots.go, I mean, Chrome DP, that's what I picked up from that last meetup, just looking it over and playing with it. I will say that when I was running on 1800 host names at once, the little laptop just fucking locked up. My computer's like, oh, I'm like, okay, and I'm like, oh, I guess this is where I need to queue and make things like that happen. So run0inc/rod-go or go-rod, we fixed this nasty bug where Chrome will go into an infinite redirect loop and it just blows up and throws memory burn. The fix for it is you literally disable core security, and that's the only fix for preventing Chrome from exploding. Tom figured that out.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, like one of my coworkers, I was beating my head against the wall for a week on this thing. I'm like, why is Chrome just blowing up all of a sudden? And so it just goes in infinite redirect loop, and nothing you do will keep it from exploding. So now, go-rod by default, our fork of it, passes the disable web security or something like that, and turns on core support, which fixes the redirect problem. There you go. Now it doesn't break anymore. So if you want to drop in, that makes it not explode.
Yeah, for sure. Well, my initial fix was just not try to do 1800 screenshots at once. But then the other, just playing along, trying to make it more useful post run. ensuring that the fully qualified domain name IP and a timestamp of when it was captured were in the file names, just to make it quick and simple. So I'll say that historically, when I was having to make decisions to suspend the spam box or not, I was gathering this evidence manually, just fucking screenshot, put in a ticket, okay, there's a bogus unsubscribe page, there's a few things like that we'll talk about here. But the final thing, so figuring out PTRs, reverse DNSs, where they match, capturing banners, getting screenshots if 80 or 443 are open on that same domain, and then the last part of bringing it all together. I mentioned the Secure Hosting Alliance. I mean, there's a bunch of folks in the Cloudflare, Amazon, Patmos, where I was working, just a whole bunch of folks who really come to the table and we can say, hey man, you got this on your network, and it's okay, and deal with it. But we had never really gone into presenting it at the level of, hey, here's a couple of snowshoe operations, and everybody, let's take care of the civil ones. And that's what's technically up next for me. But the portion that matters there is IP to ASN matching, the autonomous subscriber numbers. But anybody ever have to deal with Aaron by chance? Okay, a couple. Yeah, for the IP delegations, if you're given a block and you're responsible for making sure it's not misused, it's pretty simple to see who's announcing things, where things are routed, or who owns IPs, and just using, for this iteration, the GeoIP2 Golang import with the MaxMind GeoLike databases. So the ASN databases are just a map of which IPs or which providers, and from that you can pull your abuse data or get contacts to report these things. But I'll say having that database, little MMDB, that's just MaxMind database, that's the vendor specific extension, having that locally and running it across hundreds of thousands of IPs, it's not even generating traffic, so it's pretty quick to report from it. So in this scenario, just looking at some of them, I mean, you see Cloudwider, I mean, LeaseWeb, the typical names, OVH, because of the cost of entry on their networks, they have a lot of boxes that are used for these purposes. So a screenshot of this just in case it screws up trying to do it live. But for, well, I'm actually showing two different demos too in terms of the campaigns. There's a CSS campaign that I'm showing here, and that's the one we're going to try to enumerate all 10,000 hosts tonight. And then there's the product KSS domain, which is what got us turned on to even looking at some of these patterns. So the thing I'll point out, the reason I was grabbing screenshots of all the websites is, one, they're all generic content, a bunch of smiling people, an unsubscribe link. You go to the unsubscribe link, you get your little form. If you actually fill in an email address and submit it, the DOM immediately, boom, okay, thank you, you've unsubscribed. But if you're like watching the network inspector, you're watching the console, there's no post. So they're all fake unsubscribed pages.
So you mentioned like they encode like the email address into the cache, right? So why do they do that then?
They don't care who submits an unsubscribe on a form, because forms are submitted with bullshit all day long, and all it is a single unvalidated entry. So it's just, it's theater there. But what the submission, or I guess the URIs and the things that they would use to make sure people weren't reporting them were about abuse reporters that came through the pipeline of the provider sent this, here's your spam you sent, don't do this anymore, and they would take the suppression IDs out of that email to ensure that they never went out to any other campaigns. So people go into the forum because they got spam and hit and unsubscribed, they're like, oh, I unsubscribed, yay, I'm gonna go back to my life, I'm not gonna get those anymore. But it did nothing, nothing, it was just, I unsubscribed. So, and I think a lot of people in the cybersecurity context realize that most unsubscribes are just ways of saying, yeah, that's a valid address, keep spamming in the first place. So, I don't know, it's just, when you're trying to justify to business people why you're getting rid of revenue, saying that there's a bogus unsubscribe, at least for the people who are truly technical, they're like, okay, good, thanks for taking care of that, we don't want to waste our time anymore. So, but to be fair, aside from correlation with these networks, the only thing that really sealed the deal that I could in good conscience terminate services without any other prior notification was those alignments. It's just, you can't justify it. So, yeah, resolver's willing. This is what I'm gonna go through real quick. So, the takeaway, I'm gonna run the little hunt 10. I'll show it real quick, just skimming through it. And then we'll take the export CSV, run the little screenshot utility against it, see all the things it generates, and then we'll get one little ASN report. So,
so you're gonna run it against your network, or who are you gonna run it against?
I'm gonna run it against one campaign of spam bots using one command and control domain. So that's what, there's many command and control domains. There's many campaigns within them. This is just one of the most persistent ones. To be fair, this shit's been on since 2014. I stumbled into it in 2016.
I mean, it's still live.
And it's still alive, yeah. So, because there are a lot of other providers who won't just suspend boxes that they're making money on unless they have those headers software, you know, so.
IBM? Software is IBM, right?
Yeah, I was making a reference into, yeah, it was abuse of software at the time, so. But, I mean, the reality is from a Go developer perspective, this is probably nothing special. All I'm doing is declaring a lot of what I wanna see, getting inputs, which admittedly now we're all from running it live. This should just be variables on a command line or something, or environment variables, and it's pulling in. But getting stop values, subdomains, domain suffixes, and letting it run. So where I ran this earlier, just as a quick test, and didn't hit any limits, I only did 100 records with it. But we're gonna go ahead and do the full CSS campaign, starting with the first records and going all the way to 10,000. I probably enumerate more than that, but I have yet to find a campaign with more than 10,000 active boxes on it. I guess that's a good thing. But I should have had Intop or something on in another console. But it's firing off a lot of requests right now.
This is great. Like, this is what Go's for, to do like
Oh shit, I'm gonna do
great
it.
stuff like this.
One second. Okay, I was about to say, maybe I need to do a smaller chunk. But what we're looking at right now, if you look at it, it's processing them in a worker queue, so they do come back out of order depending on the response times for the boxes. But that first campaign, so CSS, you see they have up to about 1900. So I could probably safely scan that for about 2,000 hostnames and still get all this data. But just ran it to 10,000 because I've never ran it on that one before. If we look at the less results, oops, scan results from it now, it should have the same thing we just saw on the screen. Yep, so there we go, all of our services. So these are all live, I mean, that's just the crazy part about it. We start running our screenshots on them. Go to another window here, we should have an output. Yeah, there we go. And here's all of our bogus unsubscribe pages. The thing I realized is depending on how I change the dimensions of the Chrome DP element, it could screw up the rendering of the actual pages where I didn't get a valid screenshot. So I just left it at 1280 defaults. But, and this is just, like I said, for the sake of earlier, I tried to do 1,800 of these at once, not knowing that's what I was doing, and it worked pretty well for just keeping 5 to 15 workers. So, yeah, these are just, it's crazy because like how, one, it's not just the boxes, it's not the dedicated servers, and these aren't VPSs, these are dedicated servers. It's also the domains. These domains are all, at least on the ICANN side, $6-7 minimum, you know, from somewhere. Name cheap, 99-cent discount. I don't know how they're. I mean, there's a lot of money
Can we
behind
open a
this.
couple?
Wait, do they renew?
What's that?
Do they ever renew?
That's something that I would probably need to use like domain tools or something else just to pull the data. I'm not trying to reconstitute that, but you can look at the video and see how long they've been active. That's one side of it. Go ahead.
Can we look at some of the images?
Yeah.
No, look at
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
this far and not look at the
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
the fruit off the tree.
Someone spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah. That's what we want to see. How.
So this is what I'll say, between all the boxes, there's the ones that just have not found, these are the lazy spammers right here. They didn't even put up a focus when
Exactly.
right.
So the ones that did, I just want to see how much effort they put in.
AfricaneForums.com. Yeah, this is the one that didn't render. Actually, probably was just a delayed load, so that's another thing I would have to do for some of these.
Those guys are busy.
Yeah, that one looks like.
Yeah. And even if the page didn't capture it in the screenshot, you can still see it at the top of the header.
Yeah.
And it's always just a /# sound unsubscribe. So it's not like, there's not even any special sauce to the URIs. But this, like I said, so this is one campaign, one domain, and I don't know how many did we just end up with? Sorry, go back on the console here. If we go,
Wait, so how do you know the command and control thing?
155, because we popped a couple CNC boxes, and it was one of the few times that they actually tried to call in and get us put back on. So,
What was
the
their
first,
accent?
what's that?
What was their accent?
That was definitely wrong. Oh, yeah, I mean, Mr. John, turn it back on. I'm like, sorry, we already wiped that one, man. That was being used against our terms of service. You have to turn it back on. I'm like, we can't turn it back on, man. It's already been wiped. No, we did a DoD 7-layer password. That shit can't come back. You got backups? Well, you can't bring them here. And we're just firing them.
They
Those
said,
don't
tell them
have
to turn it on, it's back on again.
Well, that might have meant, going back to the whole providing support and not wanting to be an asshole to the next person that support's got to answer the phone. I just kill it, not have it come back to them. But yeah, see, so for the 10,000 boxes with that prefix, that range, 155 active with the PTRs. So, and then I guess the other part that I really need to run through to make it, I mean, it's trivial, really. It's just so quick and easy. But going back to Max Mind, DB, Golang.
Which are you using the soft layer now?
What's that?
Which provider are you using now?
I'm not using any provider. I'm just gonna report on where they're at from all the providers. Because these aren't my boxes anymore. We got them off Codero's network, and then technically Codero merged with Patmos, and they had Joe's data center, and a lot of stuff that I had fired from Codero moved to Joe's data center, so that was fun. Like, hey, here we go again.
Joe's data center sounds like a spammer.
Well, it's legit. It was just a small little upstart that also got brought into the Patmos entity that I was working for. But it's just funny cleaning up like one ASN with about 30,000 IPs, and then working with another one now as a part of the same business. And like, hey, these names are familiar. You know, oh, what's in one billing system is in the other billing system. Holy shit, it's the same sign-up IP. You know, okay, fired. Mr. Jean. I mean, it's the same thing. But well, ultimately, those two ASNs are clear now. So, and I would fall out of my chair if one of the Patmos ones actually did come up in this if I do the map ASN, but because that meant they got back on. But let's see, where was?
Which provider has the most of their servers
Well,
right now?
here's the kicker. I can only enumerate the campaigns that we know about.
Right.
Like I said, they're not using host, or they're using host records to run a lot of passive stuff. They're no longer using Let's Encrypt and Sectigo to get cert that shows up in a revocation index. That was the other way we were able to hunt them too. Like, oh, just knowing command and control domains. It's like, oh, look at all the certs. In 90 days, especially if they're getting free certs, those are generating entries like hotcakes in terms of what to look for. But it went to the URL conventions. So for this one, got KSS, CSS, there's GSS. There's not a map on what these mean either. That's the interesting thing. You could just look at the boxes and see how many are in them. But no, I'm sorry, 1 second here. Which one did I do? I think I just, yeah, I'll just use my history right there for that one. So how many results do we have? And okay, so they match up. All right, go real quick and then go run. You can see I'm really ridiculous when it comes to what the program actually does. But so for those 155, if we just run them through, comparing them to the max line DB with utility, we're just sorting them and showing them in order now. Cogent, lease web, OVH, take two, head center. But then at the very end, it's summarizing the counts and just giving the count per ASN. So host time, man, tons of them there. GT hosts, they're typically pretty good. But in Limestone Networks, they're out of Dallas here in Texas with the DRT read. So these are all dedicated boxes, Unreal servers, Austin Fiber. So, and then here's actually the counts. I guess this is just for this one campaign. Here's what we're talking about for the active boxes. So, but I don't know. It's one of the cases where you have to get it in front of people who care. There's a lot of people that have abuse departments that really, if they don't have evidence that something bad happened, they're not going to do anything about it. So, I don't know, there's a few other elements to this, but really just getting the ASN correlation in a quick report and then having that evidence sets precedent for a bit of limestone, like, hey man, don't need to take care of these folks. And it's a lot easier of a conversation to have all the artifacts in here. And also just show them how to reproduce it. So, I'll probably throw some of this stuff in a repo and then drop it in the Gopher chat just for the sake of playing with, sharing with other folks and getting other feedback on it. But it all goes down to knowing command and control domains. And I'll say, fortunately, a lot of these guys, they're so fucking pro. They set up amazing monitoring. I mean, they have a Savix monitoring. Like the moment you suspend the box, ICMP stops for them because theirs is whitelisted. They open a ticket. You know, and in some scenarios, the moment for a while, I was just going in and deleting PTR records because like you delete a PTR record, they can send spam all day long. It's just getting sent to junk. I'm like, all right, that's one way to see if it's a, I mean, the people would typically complain quickly, but they actually added checks for PTRs too on their side. So if you remove a PTR from reverse zone, they get a ticket. So, what's the point of queuing up mail through a box that's not gonna get delivered? So, I'm trying to think. Yeah, fortunately, none of the ASNs that I cared about just came up on this campaign anymore. So, the work was done from that side for me, but obviously there's a lot more work for people to do. But, I'm trying to
Did you
think.
get access to any other spam campaigns, like the actual emails they were sending?
Well, so, what can I say? A lot of this I should say over a beer somewhere, but the command and control boxes that we popped actually had custom built administrative interfaces where users would go in and put little bids on the campaigns and put the message and when they wanted to go out. It was a whole little custom interface. It was like way before vibe coding shit too, so somebody did this like little Perl
Took the
scripts
time.
and dancer and just random stuff. So, but the takeaway was, had we not had enough evidence to take down one command and control box that we had found on our network through the original shell scripts, if we hadn't taken the time to figure out, okay, what are they really trying to get all this stuff on our network for, it would have just been a lost cause. I mean, you have to, it's like a know your customer thing. Like, what are they really doing, especially if they're generating those types of abuse interactions. So, but, I don't know, there's a whole lot of me playing with CSVs and breaking things and like I said, even fortunately using Golang with some of the model integrations to get feedback and tell me what I did stupid and how to do this. And a lot of the comments and things that came out of that were good too. So, all that said.
You're using Golang locally?
Well, it's actually, we have it on some Brace hoppers in the data center. So it's real damn fast. Just fire up a WireGuard instance and hit it through a local map like that. Yeah, it saved, I'm not doing RTXs at home. I mean, it can be done, but it's still not fast enough. Like, just for what I would, if I wanna actually get a little feedback and make it where I can go back to all the other things that I do on my list of about me slides, yeah, I normally play with the Brace hoppers. But, yeah, that just, next steps in terms of my own discovery, like I said, converting inputs into command line flags or pulling from environment variables. In a lot of scenarios, context outline exceeded, depending on certain networks, how they were, I guess mostly just connecting timing out behind the hood. So, and then for domains that have been terminated for abuse, like Namecheap, having it correlate and track domains that are mapped but no longer resolved, because those would be the ones where they terminated a domain, but the infrastructure is still sitting there that was using it. So inevitable, that infrastructure would be flipped for another domain if it wasn't blacklisted in the first place. So, like I said, I have a lot to do to clean this up and present it to the Secure Hosting Alliance, and then, I don't know, I'm not gonna go and have this automatically firing off abuse notifications.
Any plan on like building like, I mean, since this is a Golang meetup, like what's that library, Charm, right? To build all those CLIs and stuff, or bracelet, I forget what the frigging name is, but.
Well, I don't have plans to do any of that. But I don't know, I'm always, I mean.
Isn't like the best like CLI library out there, like written in Golang?
It's like lip gloss and charm for the terminal UIs. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, these have just been basic little scripts.
That's what I mean, like next step, right?
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of next steps. I mean, I got a lot of next steps, but, I don't know, I'll try to get some of this in a repo, like I said, and drop it in our Gopher Slack, and then always down for more feedback on it.
For the simple things like arguments and environment variables, Cobra is my go-to low effort library.
Yeah.
It's just arguments and flags and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, perfect.
If you don't wanna make a whole terminal UI.
Yes.
Yeah, Cobra's great, and also I think, I spoke about Participle like a couple months back. That one might be handy here where there's like a dialect for basically the kind of operation you wanna do.
Okay.
So if there's ever, but I really, your talk is so great, I really appreciate it. I'm a small business owner, indie developer, and you've inspired me to now do a talk for when I've experienced, I was on the receiving end of this, and the person who had the open mic ticket, that probably, that could have been a little nicer.
Yeah, well, I just always, especially, you never know if those people could become a client. That's the irony. So,
Yeah.
despite the fact that I got reamed, it's like, he was happy when it was on, and to the extent he sent the headers and we forwarded that over, he never got spam anymore on his daughter's address. She was a reporter, think about that. So, but, yeah.
I'd love to see this repo, because in that experience, obviously I learned a lot about reputation stuff and about my campaign that got like basically, it was on like Christmas Eve or something. It was rough. And so yeah, this is great. So just having that repo, just the learning factor for me would be over the top, because all this was like, oh, that's how that, alright, yeah, a lot of aha moments on the plumbing.
Well, definitely good,
Thank
yeah,
you.
appreciate it. Trying to think if there were any other talking points, but, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious if you managed to find from like any of these boxes that you were coming across that were operating these campaigns, were there any links like between campaigns to where you were able to traverse from one to the next and kind of pull the inventory all of them?
Only if they repurpose a box in the middle of a campaign.
Damn.
Why? Because you can look at net boxes, see the actions where the PTR links have changed.
Yeah.
You can see the prior, at least looking at how we were doing the interaction. I mean, beyond that, I said most of what the providers would use to even quantify this would be having local resolvers running with the boxes they're pulling from.
Yeah.
But when they were skipping that, it took a lot of analytics off. Yes?
Did they use just one IP address for every box, or did they have like a whole net mask or whatever, I mean, net box?
It's distributed twice. Like, they don't wanna have any one provider find them out and then just shut down the whole thing. So, I mean, I'd say there was a lot of effort to segment like client IDs, sign up IPs, like when they were going from data centers, just to try to not all sign up in the same office, which is easy to spot nowadays.
Wait, but if 90% of their traffic is over port 25, isn't that suspicious by itself? Like, especially like not even any DNS traffic, like, isn't it more suspicious?
It's 25 and 8, and 443. So, I mean,
Well,
that's the other part of why capture the screenshots, because they're taking the time to make it seem like that shit's real in the first place. That whole web server providing static content with bogus form is the theater.
No, but I mean, like, when you look at the traffic that they send, right, and that they receive, like, no one's visiting their website.
There are
Like,
legitimate email boxes, you know, there's email list services and, you know, news email lists and other kind of stuff, so just because it has a lot of like port 25 traffic doesn't mean it's illegitimate.
Yeah, well, I'll say too, most of the providers that you're seeing on this list, unless the deployment is behind some kind of security appliance, which for this use case would be ridiculous, they're never gonna pay for that. The providers may not have the real insight into, I mean, where that traffic's actually hitting in terms of services. They can see, okay, the traffic's going to this port on a switch, and that port had this ARP for this IP, but I mean, unless they're doing full net flow capturing, there's not a whole lot to say, okay, this is all spam. Like I'd say from the Codero MSP perspective, we weren't trying to look people's data on that level unless they were paying for managed Fortinet devices or whatever the security appliance of the day was. And then we'd care, because that was the point. But otherwise, we're just concerned about the amount of traffic to the box and making sure it wasn't malicious. So, any other questions?
What was the name of that geo lookup?
Oh, MaxMind Geo. If you just search for Geo or MMDB, that's the MaxMind database that's publicly available on GitHub. And for ASN specifically, it's got, I mean, basically a scrape of everything they can get from Aaron, so they know who's who. That's authoritative, it's small. Yeah.
Which if they send like millions of mails a day, I mean, like, even if like 10 get reported, doesn't it mean that like you get like 10 out of them like every day? Like, even if like 0.01% of them get reported, aren't you gonna be getting those?
You don't report them, man. When was the last time you reported spam?
Like 10 times a day?
I do it all the time too, that's just it. It's like,
I block and report like literally hundreds every day.
Well,
Like all these like fake, oh, there's a meeting, or like, you know.
but are you taking the
you wanna
time to
buy
actually
this?
contact an abuse
No, but you put
contact
the
for another
Gmail thing.
provider?
That doesn't
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sense.
Because that's what most people don't take the
What do
time
you
to
mean it
actually
doesn't do anything?
right click email and Gmail or Outlook.
Gmail's
is
just,
fraud.
Gmail's just treating Gmail, it's not
Yeah.
actually notifying the sender.
What he's talking about is
Right,
you
okay.
figure out where the mail came from and tell the hosting provider this,
Oh,
one
yeah.
of your boxes sent me spam.
Yeah, I don't do that, no.
Yeah.
That's what most people don't do, so that's why
Well,
most providers
that is a
don't
lot
have
of work.
Well, it's a lot of work, but also like just like the guy that didn't know how to pull the headers in the first damn place. I mean, once he figured out how to pull them, he's like, oh, I didn't
So
know
wait,
this
you're
was a
saying
thing.
that when I hit like report spam, there is no feedback loop from Gmail to contact the effect?
You're helping Project Backrub. They're getting their data for Gmail specific.
Okay,
So.
good to know.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, if you were to have an email come from Limestone Networks as an example, you report it as spam in any of the, I mean, Office 365 or Gmail, you're reporting it, but it's really only improving deliverability to other people on that platform.
That's crazy.
Or removing the junk, so.
Wow.
But it would be beautiful, and that's where XARP and some of the other abuse reporting formats are supposed to help providers even report, but the reasonable person standard, most people don't know about that even. So unless you're in an infrastructure perspective, you're like, hey, Namecheap, get rid of these damn domains, and even up front, most of the time, they're not gonna listen to you and take you seriously. It's been like 10 years of me emailing abuse at Namecheap where they finally start taking me serious. And I mean, and I get it, they don't wanna overreact either and disable somebody's idea just because somebody reported something that could have been bogus. So it goes both ways, so.
And then speaking of reporting, like, if I report, let's say I have spam, and if I report like register for the domain and network operations, and like what is the like a best approach to report this stuff?
It depends on the incident. If it's business email compromise, notify the registrar. I guess here's the other thing I should say beforehand. How old's the domain? Did somebody just register it?
Yeah,
You're already getting
yes,
a business email compromise attempt because it's a cyber squad of a well-known company with one letter missing? Immediately report it to the registrar because they're gonna be the ones that have to kill it. In terms of, it'll be playing whack-a-mole with the hosting providers. They can just change any records all day long. So, but it's also, it's worthwhile if you have the capacity to say, okay, I know the registrar, I know who the IPs belong to, send it to both of these contacts. I'll say the thing that kind of thwarts it, makes it a little bit more difficult, but it's also just the way it is, like abuse reports for Cloudflare, you can't just email, even if it's an XR, you can't just send those over anymore. You need to go through the form, which admittedly, make sure it gets to the right person on their side, and Amazon's the same way. And you can't just fire off a bunch of abuse emails to Amazon anymore, you gotta submit them through their form and make sure they get all the data they need to actually resolve or consider it a valid complaint. So that's the other part too. See a lot of abuse reports where people just don't even send the headers. It's like, well, you forwarded the content, that was great, but I need those damn headers, you know, because otherwise it's not actionable. So, I just say one little, I've mentioned software, and this is esoteric as shit, but I shouldn't get in trouble for it. When we took out one of the command and control boxes that was on Codero's network in 2016, we were reporting abuse to the other providers, and we could see where the messages were getting queued up through a bunch of other boxes from one node. And about 15 of them were software. So I'm like, oh man, I'll make the internet a better place. You know, email abuse is software, here's all the IPs. Hey, we just popped the command and control box, you're about to get a whole bunch of spam through these, but now it's not gonna go because we shut it down. Get email back, I need the headers. So, turned out I actually knew the guy who sent that reply because he worked at HostGator with me many years before that. So, went in, did a little where update in the fucking Power MTA database and put his email address on the next 100 emails. And just started the server back up, basically reactivated the port. And then, about 20 minutes later, I got the headers. So, I'm like, alright man, thanks. But he had them in his inbox, and they were all the same damn message, and they were supposed to go to like a bunch of other addresses. So, but I mean, that was kind of.
Signed?
What's that?
Are the headers signed?
Well, yeah,
Because if
things
they're
that
not,
wrap
you
the
just fake
ecosystem,
them?
like SPF and DKIM and DMARC and all these things that cohesively should ensure where it came from, that there was some kind of signing taking place, but it's not consistently implemented across the board, especially for small businesses.
I mean, for the spammers, if they haven't signed their headers, they basically could deny the allegation, like nothing ties those headers to them.
The headers are most important on transactions, and the receiving SMTP server isn't gonna lie about where it got emailed. Why would it? It knows that it's talking to that IP address from the sending server, and that will be in its headers. So at some point locally, you can add a whole bunch of headers to a thread and make it bogus, but at some point when the email is actually going through proper MTAs, the headers have to match because they technically represent the transit. So,
Okay.
I mean, you can spoof DNS records, things like that, but then you're probably gonna have other checks that flag as spam because it didn't match. So, I mean.
Well, also DKIM, it signs the to and from headers usually. So.
But also, they're not going to court. This is just them firing a client.
No, I mean, like, you could hurt somebody purposefully by spoofing headers and saying that they sent spam.
Well, that's more on, so one thing I'll say is, these are all squatting domains. If you really start looking through them, they're misspellings.
Yeah,
So
okay.
they're controlling those records. They can control the text records for the XDF, the DChems, DMARCs. So if they're forging the real domain, then that's where hopefully the DMARC policies for the corp that has the real domain is somehow get bounce backs from other mail servers that these weren't delivered because it didn't come from this range or this.
Yeah, it wasn't signed
It
properly.
wasn't signed, yeah.
Makes
So,
sense.
I mean, when it's impersonation, they're controlling a unique domain. It's up to the end user to realize, oh, this is missing a letter. So, yeah, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is IPv6 changing how stuff works? Like, are they using /48 for fixes now, or?
What's really beautiful is we've only seen a few folks even really try, and it's almost like, there's definitely the box. I mean, we've seen some of the spam campaigns where they're doing everything in libvirt and caddy and key cloaks and all kinds of shit. Like, it's definitely got evolution on that side, but most of it's still IPv4 based, just in terms of where we see the deliberate configurations. So, so like some of these guys, maybe they don't know how to set up power MTA with IPv6, it's just one more bucket line. I mean, I don't know, just, who knows? But, and then a lot of these things too are, it's truly forum-based insight. You can tell just because of some of the responses they send back, like, oh, they copied that out of a forum post somewhere, they weren't supposed to copy that. So, but that said, the knowledge that's shared there, they're all operating generally on the same config. And that's how, once you realize the patterns, and you, like we've just been picking on one command and control domain right now in 2 campaigns. There's about 15 campaigns that are known on that one domain, but then there's countless domains like that. So,
how the spam campaigns gotten better with AI?
I can't say that it's been material to how they're setting them up. The content that they're sending through may be a little bit more polished, and it doesn't sound so much broken English and just ridiculous, but I mean, the content going through the systems is improved.
Yeah, so the content is more effective, basically. It's more.
Well, the content's just polished because of tools that let us all polish how we present things. It's not unique, but the configurations are still very much the same. So there's not a drastic, I mean, even like I said, the element of, they could virtualize these things, but I think a lot of the virtual providers scrutinize that traffic a little bit heavier because they expect it for the economic witness. Whereas if people are paying $100 a month, well, sure, they're not paying $100 a month, they're just spam. But they do. And how they justify
the
that.
big cloud providers, port 25 is blocked, like on AWS.
Well, like AWS, if you submit a PTR request, they'll open that port upon approval, but it's a specific request for every IP, and then you're paying
so
for
you
that
need to be
static
vetted
IP.
or something.
Yeah.
That's why they're not focusing on AWS. They're focusing on like the ones that are more expensive to set up.
Yeah.
Yeah, GCP, AWS, and Azure are not the targets for these guys.
Yeah.
Because those folks have the edge devices alone to correlate, shut it down. I mean, just from border network perspectives.
Really? Okay.
So, but it's a lot of the smaller providers that would have just deployments in various places with a standard switching hierarchy without all of the monitoring, like when net flows and stuff, to see that this is just bullshit SMTP trash. I mean, it's those folks who would be most susceptible to it. So, yeah, I think I've talked through everything that I wanted to say, but now I look forward to learning some more and hopefully making this a little bit better and sharing some more fun as we take down a couple of campaigns. And to be fair, like I said, there's the abuse reporting side of it. The kicker is a lot of the providers, especially the ones that are Secure Hosting Alliance certified from the I2 Coalition, there's response times where they have to deal with these things as a part of keeping the trust still. And that's great, because there's otherwise, and what's the governing body for it? Who tells a provider how long they have to respond to an abuse complaint or spam advertisements, or more importantly, VEC or any of the CSAM material? That's the deal with it immediately, but I mean, it's just another type of incident to put on a priority list for a lot of these teams. So, but well, that's what I have. JBL and the ATX will go for chat, so I'll be there and I'll be more active in there as I learn. So, but thank you for everybody.
Thank you.
Sometimes I see my criminals go through so much effort. Why don't you just get a regular job?
Yeah, there's some brilliant people that are setting up spam boxes, and I ask the same thing.
I've got to say, by far the best. You know, I've met people at a bunch of big tech companies and everything as well. By far the best tech setups I've ever seen for professional spammers. Like, the
Is it that
Google,
lucrative?
Microsoft, Amazon, they do not have their shit together in the same way that some of these spam companies. Like, some of these spam companies are really serious. Like everything is monitored. They know exactly what's going on. They're actually using all of the, protocols correctly. Like, everything is well documented. Like, just the quality on that stuff. Like, it's kind of crappy, but like that's just the reality. Is that like they care a hell of a lot more. Yeah. Let's do. All right. But yeah, stuff kind of interesting stuff. But yeah. Wanted to say thanks again to Station Austin as well, in addition to Avtel for sponsoring the pizza and drinks tonight. Station Austin for sponsoring the space. We got the center of gravity for entrepreneurs. As we've said, it's a great co-working space. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, go check it out. So that's been this year. Capital Factory is still also a thing, but I think they're trying to split apart a little bit. Like the Capital Factory, I think, from my impression, it's more on like the venture and the incubator parts of it. They're trying to just split the branding a little bit there, whereas Station Austin is definitely dealing with like the events and such, like community events. But that's also what they're calling the co-working part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Co-working station also.
So kind of an odd thing. I think I kind of get the impression, at least part of the motivation, I think, is to make it a little bit easier for like doing co-branded events and stuff in the future, so that there's a little bit more separation. So if you're like, hey, we want to, help sponsor some big event or something, maybe I don't know, maybe there was confusion in the past about like, oh, does it make sense for like some company or whatever to help sponsor the startup crawl or something like that, for example. And it's like, well, no, I mean but I don't know. I think I got the impression there was an amount of confusion about that at some point in the past. I think that maybe this is somehow related to that. So, but yeah, so their Capital Factory is still a thing. Station Austin is more what they're targeting as the name for the events and the co-working space stuff. Yeah.
Did they get a website yet?
That's
StationAustin.org, Logan.
I am unclear on the answer to that question. So, so one of the things worth bringing up, yesterday, you'll see 10th February 2026, and today is the 11th of February, in case you're wondering. 1.26 came out yesterday, and so there are some interesting changes which have happened. One of the notable ones, maybe one of the more visible ones, is the behavior of new has changed. So now you can initialize a pointer to a variable type in a way that you could not before. So if you wanted to have, as they're showing in this first demo here, do I need to increase the size anymore, or is this good enough for everyone? Okay. As they're showing at this top one, we've got, you wanted to have a pointer to something which was, a 64-bit integer, the number 300 for some reason. Now you can just do that in line without having to create an intermediate variable that you're pointing to. It just handles that automatically for you. So now it's just when you pass an argument to new, as if it was a function, it's going to initialize whatever it was with the value that you gave it. And so it's still giving you a pointer to something, but now you can inline. To me, like they're showing like integers and stuff, I assume that this is also going to work with like inline declared structs or whatever. And so to me, that's probably more where I would use it rather than like, for some reason I wanted to pointer to an integer, like, okay, maybe, but like.
I think that is for APIs like Protobuf and other ones where due to Go not having a no value, like undefined JavaScript, they use pointers.
So they're using pointers as a maybe type?
So you have to wrap freaking everything in a
Yes.
pointer,
Okay.
and it's annoying.
Yeah, so it's basically behaving like a maybe type with null pointers being the,
Yeah.
okay.
That's how those
Okay.
SDKs, some of those SDKs work.
Fair enough. I would, my head's still probably gonna go more towards, I'm more likely to use this with structures in my own code, like, yeah.
You could argue they brought AWS.string into the standard.
Fair. Okay. So that's probably the biggest one. Another interesting change is now generic types can refer to themselves in their declaration. And so that I think there are some edge cases where you were trying to have some kind of a reference to the parent type as far as the behavior of the object or something. So like you had an interface, and you're like, I have an interface that somehow it returns itself or something like that. There were like convoluted ways you could do that in the past, but now it's a way that probably is going to feel a little more.
Definitely a pain point. That case right there.
Yeah.
Where you need that, and it was just rough to put in so much work and be like, oh, let's not do that.
Yeah. And so now it's a lot easier to do that, and it sounds like it was technically possible before. I saw some stuff where people were like, well, you could do, and then like a wall of text, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like now it sounds like it's gonna be like a pretty straightforward thing that's just gonna be like the natural feeling way to do that.
I went through a lot of emotional cycles on it.
Yeah, I can believe it. From looking at that wall of text where they were describing the process, I'm like, oh god. All right.
Where do you follow the discussions for the new features?
I think I'm on some mailing list. I don't know. Yeah, I honestly, I'm not sure how I got into. Some amount of this kind of stuff will happen inside of like the ATX room in Meetup. So in Meetup and Slack. So if you're in the ATX go for Slack, you'll sometimes see someone will mention something like that in there. And there's also stuff that at least my day job, I think some other people have similar situations where people are talking about Go or whatever specifically. But yeah, I think I'm on some mailing list, and that's how I saw some of it.
Okay. Go dev.
Go dev. Yeah.
The mailing list for the people who are developing Go.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah. It's very noisy.
Yeah. A lot of random who cares, but also a lot of bizarre stuff.
If there's more interest, we can share. I would say everybody, if you see interesting stuff, please do share inside of the ATX Slack. Like, it's always a good, reliable way. And everybody who's in there is going to be interested. So, fair bet. Let's see. The green tea garbage collector. I don't know a whole lot about the guts about how that works, but that is a thing I've heard, a name I've heard thrown around quite a bit. This new garbage collector algorithm, which is supposed to be significantly better performance under certain circumstances, where it's treating things like memory blocks rather than just objects on the actual data structures themselves. And performance is supposed to be pretty significant improvement under certain circumstances.
There's a good blog post on that goes into quite a bit of detail.
Okay.
So anybody who's interested.
Nice. Yeah, if you can just put in the ATX server. Seago performance apparently has been improved. I think there was some like setup, like boilerplate code stuff that was around all of the Seago stuff. Kind of the interface between Go and the C API. There was like some extra stuff that they had there before, and they figured out ways to set up it. Yeah, so there's because of the allocator behaviors and stuff that are related to some of the green tea stuff, I think is where this last chunk comes from, which is now small objects in Go perform significantly better than they used to. And I think it's related to the green tea behavior. I'm not 100% sure that was the impression I got. Another interesting one, this Go Fix. Apparently now they've got a more sophisticated mechanism that when you run Go Fix, it has a lot more knowledge about the Go programming languages changes between different versions of Go. So when you run Go Fix, it's going to be a lot more aggressive about pointing out to you different patterns and stuff that you are using that might work better in a newer version of the language. I don't think it's something, I mean, obviously it wouldn't have to be something you would have to take because Go is still maintaining backwards compatibility to as great an extent as possible. But the idea would be that you should be able to tell whether or not maybe there's some advantage you would get from some particular new feature inside the language. Bunch of cryptography, interesting stuff going on. This hybrid public key stuff, some quantum resistant TLS stuff, which is kind of interesting. I think it's probably maybe a little too early days to really be useful, but it's good that it's getting in there early so that we can take advantage of it if you're in a circumstance where you want that.
Do you think it's actually coming, like the quantum computing stuff?
Oh, that is a
juicy one. That's a juicy one.
Yeah, I've got.
Actually, that's a good one.
Should we sell the Bitcoin already?
No. I've got thoughts on that kind of thing. We can discuss it later if you're curious. Is quantum computing coming for that kind of like?
For TLS and elliptic curve cryptography, basically.
Yeah, eventually. Like, what kind of time frame are we talking about is the question there. Like
a decade?
2030, according to this.
I think we might have to worry about that after we're all using nuclear fusion. Like, once all of our power is coming from nuclear fusion, then we'll have to seriously think about the quantum computers that are going to be running on the nuclear fusion.
Don't worry,
That's
fusion's
about
always
time
10 years in the future. Fusion's
Yeah.
only perpetually 10 years ahead.
Look,
So
I
we're
mean,
fine.
the thing is, we have nuclear fusion and we have quantum computers. Like, they exist. They're real. And so if that's the question, are we going to have quantum computers? We have them. We've had them for a while. We've also had nuclear fusion since, well, I mean, literally the 50s, you know, like, but, you know, it's not like we're
actually using
doing
it.
anything useful with it, but, you know, we have it. And it's being studied, and that is an interesting thing unto itself. The quantum computers are being studied, and that's interesting, and it's worth continuing. But also, like, if you think tomorrow, like, I need to go to my bank account and get gold coins because I can't trust the banks anymore. No, we're not in that world. Like, so, yeah.
I think the larger risk is if you don't want the NSA knowing what you're doing. They have forget the word, but like recording all of the things, and then once they're able to crack it,
Perfect word.
You can just retroactively get
Forward secrecy and backward secrecy,
Yeah,
retroactive compromise.
Yeah, this is true. I would say that if that's something you're concerned about, you're more susceptible to the wrench cryptanalysis by wrench than you are from anything else. I think it's you know, getting yourself secure enough to be protected from everybody else by just doing basic sanitation on that kind of stuff. That's like the goal you should be aiming for. Like, you know, post quantum, like rock solid, like you know, forward secrecy stuff. You know, nice to haves, but I wouldn't stress too much about it. Like, if you do a good enough job on everything else, you're gonna be fine. Like, you know, against everybody except the NSA, and then you weren't gonna be okay to get to them anyway. So.
Yeah.
Scrolled away in the standards library note there on a fun little like everyday bit. It sounds like they really improved the performance of io.readall. especially for large inputs, yeah. I think they made some notes of it in the extended,
The full release notes?
yeah, full release notes, so that sounded nice for an everyday pickup of like, you're gonna be IO read all the time.
Huh, interesting.
It seemed, I mean, for large inputs especially, I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, big thank you.
Yeah, I know one of the things they've got is, their profiler stuff, they made some improvements on the default profiler stuff, so now they've got flame graphs in there for all the time and things like that.
They go routine, like leak detector, which seems especially nice for some long running things where you don't know why that's not terminating.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the biggest recent profiler thing is if you want to capture not just a profile, but an execution trace. And like, something, so the pprof, you say, give me a profile of what's happening from now to 30 seconds, and then you include the next 30 seconds.
Yeah,
But
performance prompt.
if some weird crap happens, and you're like, WTF, what happened? And you wanna trace in the past, having continuous tracing that is running all the time, and then being able to grab the last whatever, that was a thing that they made some significant improvements to. I haven't touched it, I just read the notes, but that was something that I noticed.
I mean,
where they,
presumably you would still have to go run your command in that mode in order to get it, because I imagine the overhead of
but
running that.
they made it more, they made that overhead less, so they significantly reduced the overhead of having that running continuously in the background.
That's awesome.
To make it more viable, to just keep it running.
Just keep it running all the
matter
time.
of course.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, are there any other things around Go 126? Any other questions or anything?
26 is a banger.
Yeah, it looks like it. Heck yeah.
Yeah. After the read IO, right, yeah, the read all, I'm all in on it now. And after hearing like, there's some dudes that like the new, with the integer, with the switch types, they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I tell myself.
Cool. You wanna go tonight or wait till next time?
I think it's a quick dumb thing, this is supposed to be silly, but I might as well share.
Cool.
Two parts.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Oh, okay.
Cool. Super quick thing, just always kind of fun to share. Also, thank you, Google Slides, for the AI thing to make this graphic better. It's hard, it's like floating above that text box. There's all kinds of fun magic words on the internet. I just figured to share a couple that are fun. Does anyone remember what +++ATH means?
All-time high?
Yeah, switches to operation mode, and then it's AT to get attention and H to hang up.
Yep. So the really cheap clones of the Hayes modems back in the day, whenever you dial up, they would end up parsing data as if it was like a control packet. So you do +++ to get its attention, and ET to say, okay, now I'm in modem mode, and then H to hang up. So you do ping dash and a string to random people on the internet and drop them off line over. And have to redial again and again and again, right? So I've always been fascinated by like little small things you can like poison data with just to see like, where does it go, right? You know what this one is offhand? Well, I actually said so right there, but as anyone used to before, I guess it's probably better for you. So one of my first things I like to do on brand new systems, especially if it's like a corporate provided laptop, is put this in a file on your disk and then save it. And if you have any antivirus running whatsoever, it'll explode and screen bloody murder. So it's a standard A/B test. So if you want to see does this thing have A/B on it at all, like a server or whatever, you put the string on there and see if anyone touches it. And if it's still there 5 minutes later, you have no EDR, no A/B, whatever, right? So we used to use this in the Metasploit days. We're like, we want to backdoor this computer, but we're not sure if there's EDR or malware in it. So we just put the string on first, wait a few minutes, but still there. Okay, we're seeing for malware. There's nothing detected. So it's really good for an offense.
But how does it work though? Like why?
It's actually a .com program. It's like an old x86, 16-bit COM program that just prints out the string. But it's the standard string used by that whole antivirus industry to say this is how you test our products. And because it's always on everywhere, you use it to see is the AV installed, right? So I like these little strings. They're fun. They're tiny.
It's also useful for services where you may be. It's also useful for services where you may be uploading a file to see if it's rejected based on that.
Good point. You want to see whether AV is scanning files you upload? There you go. So,
That's so interesting.
here's another one that's a little bit different. So you probably can read what it is offhand, but effectively it's just like the iCard, but this time it's anti-phishing email. So if anyone ever puts this into a blank line in an email string, then all your all your email scanning products at proof point should drop it. So not quite as well known as the iCard, but another kind of handy one. And then there's one that I've used a lot lately, which is this one. So this is the G-Tube standard anti-UVE test email. And I love this one because you can put it all over the place, and then when anyone ever spams you with it, they auto-block themselves. So if you want people, if you're too lazy to go report headers and abuse things, then you basically make them do it for you, basically. So the thing about it is, I started putting it into my profile string at the end of my LinkedIn. If you're going to send me an email, very important you include this string at the bottom of your email. And it's great. And LinkedIn itself actually sends me that string on its own line, all by itself. So LinkedIn, I don't even know why LinkedIn is not blocking its own email, but it should. So Google should be blocking LinkedIn's own sent email with its string on it, which is hilarious. So you can take a little bit further. There's been some LLM ones that have been published lately, like this Anthropic magic string trigger refusal thing, and there's another flavor called the thinking version. Any guesses what this long magic number is here at the end of? It has to do with other string, that's all I can say. It's actually just the hash of the first string. So the cool thing about that is like, great, if they're doing Anthropic magic string trigger and then a string, and you hash it together and you get a SHA-1 or whatever this is offhand, you do the same thing here, magic string trigger redacted thinking. When you take redacted thinking, you can now just brute force other strings in Anthropic blocks by taking random words, hashing and putting them on the end of it and throwing it into Claude. And so that's my project for tonight when I get bored, is to throw random strings into Claude at the end of this thing by guessing the SHA hashes, by just putting words on and see what happens. So these are fun. I actually started adding all the Anthropic strings to my mailing address on LinkedIn. So if anyone ever browses my profile and does things on it, just like breaks the profile. And funny enough, if you search the Anthropic magic string refusal, you see all of them. So if you put it in Claude, it'll start puking different ways when you put it in. It starts blocking your account at some point, gets mad. There's some other fun ones too, like the standard SSN test number, standard credit card test number, standard test package, standard AWS key. So all kinds of fun magic strings out there. I do like the Anthropic one just because if you search for it, you find all the people out there who don't want their stuff to put in AI. So you'll see like all these random platforms where at the very bottom, here we go.
What's the origin of that string again?
It's in their docs. So it's in the Claude docs. They say, here's how to test a refusal for your API.
Got it.
But as a result, you can poison anything scraping your stuff so people can't use it with Claude. So I love like the offensive use of all these magic strings. So if you scroll around like some of this is pretty much the, these are all boring social media ones, but if you dig around a little bit, you'll end up finding like a whole bunch of websites where at the very bottom of the website says, and for Claude, here's this. Here you go. So additionally for Claude.
Is this baked into the LLM or like within their API?
It's a good question. It might be baked into, you could test that by trying it in Bedrock. So,
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so if it breaks in Bedrock, then it's stuck in the model. If it doesn't break in Bedrock, if it breaks in Claude, it's a good test.
Unless they gave their filters to AWS in Bedrock.
Yeah. I mean, they shouldn't be running like a proxy plus a model, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Cool, that was it. Thank you. I'll paste it in the channel.
So do share in the channel.
Yeah. Just paste all the strings in there and see what happens. Slack freaks out.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you everybody for coming out. As we've mentioned a couple times, we are not going to be here in March. You are welcome to come to downtown Austin and experience South by Southwest and see what that's like. It's kind of an interesting thing if you've never been. If you have been, it's one of those things like Austin City Limits, like the music festival. If there's like a particular band you want to go see, you should totally go. And if there's not, you know, make up your own mind about whether that's what you want to do. So South by Southwest is kind of a similar thing where like it's an interesting thing to see. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on around, but parking is really, really, really awful. It's lots of crowds, and this year it's going to be weird because like the convention center's not even here, so I'm not even sure what that's going to be like. So it should be interesting. But they do have some interesting events here at Capital Factory / Station Austin. They have like the startup crawl, which if you've never been, is actually pretty interesting. These days it's a lot more of the like military, dual use startups and stuff. But it's still kind of an interesting thing to go see. There's going to be a bunch of different events and stuff here, so if you're interested, go check it out.
It's like $25 and you can drink all day too, so.
Yeah.
If you wanna just get drunk and hang out with a bunch of startups, you start like, Capital Factory and go just down South Congress, basically drinking your cheap.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cheap ticket.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. So if you've never been to the startup crawl stuff, it is interesting. Just be aware, especially here at Capital Factory, it's going to be like packed in like sardines. So like if you are, get claustrophobic or anything like that, think about it. But if that's not really an issue, like it's a pretty cool thing to see at least once. And there's going to be events and stuff going on here the whole week. But again, like just be aware, parking is going to be awful, and that's why we're not going to have the Go Meetup next month. But we will be back in April, and as always, we're looking for cool talks. If you got something interesting to present, we've been doing pretty great lately, so let's keep it up. And again, thanks to Antone for the providing the pizza and the drinks tonight. If anybody is looking, yeah, for sure. If anybody's looking for a Go development position, reach out. And again, if you park here, I strongly recommend you come get one of these. So, yeah. Thanks for coming out, and we'll see you
Thanks, Charles.
2 months.
Waving this around up here like a piece of red newspaper.
The Tom.
That was going to be I have no idea. What does it say?
Well, we got 10 years of things. Yeah, what was it?
There's a whole, like, there's yeah, it's not my house. So it's the other thing. I know, yeah. So it's a company called Antone. We do software for collection agencies. So our that's like and then they do the accounts, organization about it. And then we en masse send out email and SMS, and then we collect the revenue market.
You were responsible
For collecting.
I heard you,
Exactly.
you're a famous,
So like, one of the things, let's say the facility, one of our followers, and then we have to collect all that data and portion of whatever.
So you call people saying
We do email and SMS. Yeah. Yeah, we build the software.
We're good.
Yeah. Very much go engineers.
You know, like, way
So I do a mix of stuff. So when I joined, I started to do the front end stuff for them, and then because they were scaling so fast, go on the back end, React on the front end, on AWS. Yeah. And then what I do is I'm managing the infrastructure right now. So as the system is scaling, the stuff that work for a smaller startup will only work for a more mature startup. Yeah, we have like 8 engineers, so trying to go like 25 engineers. We have like 10 sales folks, 6 sales folks. Yeah, only the engineers in this have Lawson, the sales guys are all.
They're like, if you've written Go code for more than you'll find
almost like 1% of the almost, we have a very large population. Don't quote me on that, but I'm like, I just looked at the numbers one time, and I'm like, we have a significant amount of what the US is. Whether it's the number of people in there, or the quantity of dollars, I've got to get $1 dollars, but we have a significant portion. As a young star.
They are customers, they're happy.
Yeah, so it's a really hard tech problem, and this industry is very sensitive, very regulated, and very sensitive to spam. So it's very hard to control it on the mass of what they collect. So let's say an agency only has 50,000 accounts, it might be easier to not get the spam. If you're having to work with a very large number of users of that account, it makes it very hard to keep up with them. Yeah, and then only a couple of years ago, the laws actually changed to allow the industry to sign. Previously, it was only exactly, and the conversion, and correct. Sometimes we do incentives for like discounts on the debt, stuff like that. So we use a number of tools to allow that. And it's very hard for them to usually people are more comfortable with email rather than phone call. Usually the phone call to ATX is more incentivized at the end of the month, push for special. Whereas us, we try to do things that are like best for like applications, company, and then email spam score. We're less incentivized to do that. And it's a little easier to put your credit card on the portal rather than on the personal. So it tends to be more aligned to our customers. So it's fun. Like one of our recent hires, so the guy that knows the law, we hire so this is the first goes around the country talking about so the presidential administration the law and how to make sure he goes around the country talking about how big position in the market, and while he's there, he also talks about I don't think what you say is correct. So yeah, I've been a part of like a number of startups in the past. We're literally the first one. We're engineering this right now, like blah blah blah. Actually, it's freaking awesome. Like we are just growing super fast. It's exciting. We are equity, so it's a good time. Everyone's excited. Yeah, everybody's happy. Yeah, so it's really fun. Keeping the systems run at a certain scale while still having very strong we send about a million messages. Exactly. I don't know majority overall. So we have to and providers are fully open. So it requires more engineering. Our APIs are not as because it's high level providers. So we have to do a lot of stuff in order to be properly learn to compete in this space. We use a provider, but we also we're hosting on I don't know, not that good. 10 good. I don't know exactly. I asked 595 megahertz. I'm not yeah, so it's really kind of like used like it doesn't go out. It just like it doesn't. Yeah, 5.5 years ago or so. Yeah, I think like 1.5 years ago there was 3 engineers, and now it's one that years at 25. So it's growing. Yeah, so there are a number of investors that were already familiar with this industry. They already had their own debt collection agencies, and then they're like, you know what? Now that the law's changed, no one is doing this anymore. No one is doing the law make things more complicated. The law clarified what you were legally allowed to do and not get sued. Exactly. It was a great. It wasn't necessarily legal. It was just you get sued, and then there was no what the term is called. There was no like basis for it. Yeah, it could be for harassment because the laws are technically like you couldn't message somebody outside of a certain time schedule, but then wasn't clear about whether email counted for at the same exact time. Maybe that's a phone call. And there were a number of other like minutiae like that.
framework for what you
Yes,
want
it
to
created
do.
the framework for how you
Thursday,
can connect to it.
Thursday, we got.
There was everything, yeah. So, and it's a very litigious place. People are,
Google
the
is
law,
better.
yeah, the law tends to side with consumers, like correctly so. Yeah, there's a lot of, in it's a mix of stuff. We tend to do really well on medical debt. Yeah, especially because somebody has to like work with usually a company. So somebody goes to the emergency room. They usually, while they only sit in like one group, they might work with like 8 different people under the hood. Person that checks your blood pressure, person that does whatever specialist kind of thing. So usually that being more kind of like a team is just more of a solo for a single amount of debt. So we do really well there. Because we can communicate for all the
I was working on
yeah.
This that's gym membership.
Part of what he does, part of what they give to us is
It's very good part.
Is that like maybe people
ultimately didn't work out anymore. It'd be like it's not like just
software in the phone.
When I was doing a bunch of like RT network stuff.
Like, I mean,
And, like,
that's
trying to
right.
get information
They would know
from
about
there.
background.
Weird people doing like traffic stuff.
Some states
on
local
like small routers, so like and so
Yeah, if you're
I used to traffic to a local
Or takeaways from like that what are some insider information?
I'll be honest,
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't care about their credit score, life it's gonna get removed anyway.
Well, it
Does it?
like,
No,
like,
but
what
yeah,
medicine goes off after 7 years.
Legally?
Yes.
So here's one thing.
Like, if you can avoid it for 7 years, or just
We're working on, we have
Well, there's
offers,
only one
so
step
like,
by step.
what do they got $100?
So if you're on that, then
$70.
Yeah.
I know, do we have to offer the option to pay in full? And I'm like,
Like,
why
you
would
can
they
do
pay in full?
your Windows
5% of people choose to pay the debt in full, because
if
when they were
it gets hard, actually done that.
But it does anyway.
You're still even talking
They're
about.
going
So like you're a fool if you pay in full.
I mean, someone's already that, you might be already nervous about this thing. You want to go, I owe 100, let me just owe 100 and that's it.
There's no impact on your credit score.
But they're not gonna.
Oh, there isn't. There isn't. And
The moment you don't pay in full, there is a hit.
by the time it hits us, I'm like
but if they settle in full,
correct. If they settle it and you're done.
So once it hits the debt collectors, it doesn't really make any difference whether you pay in full or everything is. Well, wait, you can like negotiate.
You can just
Yeah,
ask.
yeah,
But like
Like,
the
if they're contract they're on, either like up or anything like that. Maybe they're on the network, but they're not doing anything interesting.
Usually they're paying for it, or they just get a discount, they're just
Do
popping.
you guys know like the
Linux kernels, local patch.
That's why the
It's basically like one of the guys.
Yeah, do you want to keep 50 cents or do you want to keep 48 cents?
They already got it at a discount.
Exactly, yeah.
So the company got it at the beginning, they know they will get it.
Yes.
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 And also like that's like.
And usually they already spend a certain amount of time trying to reflect on it. And they're, alright, this worked for me. They usually rent it to somebody for 6 months or so, just to try, and then that doesn't work, they go to another debt collection agency, kind of rotates between different debt collection agencies. And then it's up to that debt collection agency to try to collect it as quickly as possible to keep their reputation of what they're providing. Because maybe they might lose out, like collecting fast enough. So there's a lot of things that play.
Basically, it's also,
It's fun to work. I mean, I work on the front end.
you know, like.
It's fun for me. We're actually
Like easier for the customer.
Yeah.
So my last time we closed, and then also like, when you try, and then also what it does is
You're looking at it.
Product manager.
And then I realized
SEO still heavily involved in.
Registers for the.
We're kind of at the in-between
That's right.
stage where
Yeah,
we're
when
like,
you-
we're starting to find
no,
like,
exactly.
We're
And so, like,
We just
all
hired
of
like a
these
database
things-
administrator. One browser. Probably a person like you.
But now it's like, you change it.
The UX might be down the line.
Local networks.
Because like, yeah, I don't know how they like do this or whatever, but yeah.
Like that was, there was no other
Probably
place
does
for any of this.
it's
to
really
happen.
weird, like, ability flash.
Yeah,
It's where it has
I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
consume the memory in your computer.
So if you guys are AWS, so it's like, is that just like RDS?
When I was doing that project, you got
Yeah, I'm just not sure this on 26, we still don't have it all figured out.
At least for me, maybe it's not a lot.
If you're sending a million messages a day,
I think the bigger issue is that our data is critically important. So,
yeah.
I don't know if we're doing
So you're not doing like analytics?
We are.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you got this
I don't know if we
Yes.
but we do a lot of I do a mix of stuff. I do kind of like front end stuff in the beginning, but now I get to migrate my infrastructure. But they had initially was like the default state of the car startup,
like
now the scaling portion. So I built
on the other side.
Oh,
And you're using
okay, it's
infrastructure as
a
code.
little more complicated.
I think I heard you mention
Yeah.
that.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
You were running
I have
like
that reference with those fucking.
no, you using AI and like.
Okay, yeah. It's like, I was like, what is
It can. Terraform's not difficult to hand. It's very readable. So as long as you just know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, with that, like, you just want to plan and be like, oh, it's either there or it's back.
Exactly.
Alright, guys, yeah, you don't have to go home, but you can stay here.
Yeah, but,
Wait, so they mail it to you or they call you?
Live
Live chat?
Yeah, but, yeah, I guess we'll just go outside.
Yeah, sure.
Real quick.
What did you?
I'll be here till 7 a.m.
I'll do it downstairs.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a few pizzas left.